We've seen some people online do some stuff with these bases to make them look nicer, so I thought I'd go through how to do that. Get a bit of wraithbone base, and we're going to fill in these sections, making sure to get it into all the recesses so that it ends up looking like this. So I'm going to come back, possibly once I've done 2 thin coats, and show you what to do next. And I'm now going to use one of the contrast greens on that wraithbone. You can use any of the contrast greens. If you want to lighten them up and still use one that starts out fairly dark like Orc Flesh, you can just thin it with medium. And you can immediately see the effect that's having. So, as with all contrast paints, treat it a little bit like painting with glazes, though I may make up a glaze after this of green to help even the colour out. But you can see how that all starts to fit together. And you've got a nice colourful base. After you've done this step, you can just finish and varnish it there. I'm going to go over with a couple more stages just to make it a little bit nicer. I've done a quick heavy dry brush of green on this, and now I'm using thinned down Athonian camo shade to get rid of those brush strokes and treat it almost like a glaze. And then very quickly we've got some nice looking bases. The next step is going to be to use some silver paint, something like bolt gun metal or rune fang steel, and then just go over all these edges. You can, if you want, use a little spot of bright green and put blips in these radar, which will be a nice detail touch. With the metal done, it's time for a little agrax in the recesses and around the rivets. Then with that done, we're going to give a little dry brush of Storehouse silver and then varnish it. So I've got a little bit of Storehouse silver, and I'm just going to go around the edges with it just to put a little highlight on the metal. Where I've got these rivets, I can put a tiny little drop of Storehouse on them just to make them a little shinier. But if there's one thing Aeronautica isn't short of, it's rivets. Again, this is something that you might use a panel wash on. And with that simple step, it's ready to varnish. But you don't want to gum up these bits with varnish and make it hard for you to turn the dials. So what I'm doing is I'm using a little bit of blue tack. You can of course use masking putty to put on the dial before I give it a gloss varnish, which should fully protect it. So I'm going to come back in a second and show you exactly what it looks like varnished. So with the gloss varnish done, it's time to pull out the blue tack, which means that still easy enough to move these dials, so there isn't a layer of gloss varnish making them even tighter. Yep. And that is how to fancy up your Aeronautica bases. I mean, you could do this AI in gold if you like, but I like that, so I think it'll look good with my Orc planes and my Imperial planes, because that does provide a nice contrast. If you've liked this video, hit like and subscribe. If you want to chat, leave a comment below, but otherwise, good gaming.